The sun over Kessam's Landing had been dying longer than I had been alive, and I was born the year the evacuation lists opened, so I never knew a sky that wasn't the color of a bruise going yellow at the edges. My mother didn't survive the third famine wave, neither did my two litter mates. I was the runt anyway, small enough to fit inside a boot, and I spent the first season of my life doing what small, starving things do, hiding in the gaps between shipping crates at the muster yard, learning which humans walked heavy and which walked careful, learning that heavy meant kick and careful sometimes meant something else. Wren Calder walked careful. She ran the loading manifests at Gate 9, checking crates and passenger counts against a board that never had enough room on it. And she had a voice that never went sharp even when the overseer was shouting 2 docks over. She was ordinary to look at: sun-cracked hands, a coat 2 sizes too big, hair cut short so it wouldn't catch in the crate winches. Nothing about her looked like someone a starving apex predator would trust its life to. That was the point, though I didn't understand it yet. The loud ones, the ones who postured and swung their weight around the yard, never got close to anything wild. The quiet ones did. The first time she found me, I'd wedged myself under a fuel crate with a torn ear and a belly so hollow it had stopped hurting, past the point of fear and into the flat gray place beyond it. She didn't reach for me. She crouched at a distance, low enough that I could see her hands were empty, and set down a strip of dried ration meat on the concrete between us. "Easy," she said. "Nobody's coming for you today." Then she stood and walked away, and let me decide for myself whether that was true. I decided slowly. It took 11 days before I ate close enough to touch her boot. It took 11 weeks before I let her hand rest on my back without flinching toward the shadows. By then, Overseer Talwyn Reeve had already posted the order. No Dunweir on the manifest, no exceptions. Cull anything found inside the loading perimeter. He called us vermin in the briefings, scavenger stock. Said we'd strip a cargo hold to the bolts if we ever got aboard a ship, and maybe some of my kind would have, once, before the wastes taught us better. He never asked. He'd decided the shape of us before he ever saw one of us up close. Wren logged me anyway. Not on the manifest. She wasn't foolish, and neither was I. But in a private ledger, the loading crew kept among themselves, a column for the things that mattered, that the overseer's paperwork had no place for. They called it the unlisted kin clause, half as a joke, half because loaders are sentimental people who needed a word for what they were doing. Under my line, she wrote one word: pebble. I was small enough to earn it. I grew. Dunweir grows slow and then all at once, the way the wastes taught us to, storing what little we eat until the body decides it's finally safe to spend it. By the second evacuation season, I could rest my chin on Wren's shoulder standing on my hind legs. By the third, I didn't need to stand. I was already that tall, quills fanned pale along my spine, claws that could open a supply crate in one motion, learning instead to carry things gently, because she'd taught me gentle first, and I never forgot it. I slept across the foot of her cot in the dockmaster's shack, too big for it by then, and she never once told me to find somewhere else. What she never knew, what I never told her, because some things a stray keeps for itself, was that I wasn't the only one. The wastes beyond Kessam's Landing were dying faster than the colony was, and every season, more of my kind came limping toward the one gate where the woman who fed me still worked, drawn by whatever scent or memory or old instinct calls the starving, toward the last kind hand they've heard of. I met them past the yard's edge. In the culvert tunnels, the overseer's patrols never bothered checking because they smelled of rot and nobody official wanted to crawl in after us. I did what she had done for me. I brought them what I could scavenge or steal or catch, split thin across too many hungry mouths, and I sat with the worst of the cubs through the nights their fever ran high, the way Wren had once sat outside my crate without ever reaching in until I was ready. I taught them that careful hands meant something different than heavy ones. I taught them her name, so if I ever went down and didn't get back up, they'd know whose gate to trust. By the final loading season, there were 19 of us hiding in the dark beneath a colony that had officially decided we didn't exist, and unofficially, in a ledger no inspector ever saw, had a name for every one of us. The last ships were scheduled to lift on the day the sun finally slipped below the threshold the astronomers had been dreading for a decade. The muster yard was full. Every colonist Kessam's Landing had left, queued in the open under a sky the color of a wound, waiting for their names to be called. Reeve stood on the loading platform with his manifest board and his clean uniform, reading names into a horn that echoed off the empty warehouses, and Wren stood at gate 9, doing the last count, calm as she'd been the day she first crouched down and told a dying cub that nobody was coming for it. They came anyway, not for me, for all of us. The wastes had been emptying of more than starving Dunweir all season. The collapse was driving everything toward the last warm lights on the world. Every creature that could still move, funneling in toward the one place the sun hadn't finished dying yet. What came over the perimeter fence 20 minutes before the final horn wasn't kin. It was a pack of scavenger beasts 3 times my size, ribs showing through matted hide, driven mad past caution by a hunger even the wastes couldn't feed anymore. And they hit the fence line where the queue was thickest, where families stood packed shoulder to shoulder, waiting for a name to be called that might be theirs. I heard the screaming before I saw them clear the wire. I heard the horn cut off mid-name as whoever was working it dropped the mic and ran. I didn't think about the culling order, or the manifest, or 19 years of staying hidden in a culvert to keep from being shot on sight the moment someone official finally saw me clearly. I went over the fence. The others came with me. I won't describe all of it. A grounds crew still tells it better than I could, and there's no dignity in dwelling on the parts that were ugly. What matters is what the whole colony watched from the open yard with nowhere to hide. 19 Dunweir, full grown, quills locked flat and claws bared, moving as one animal around the people they'd never been allowed to be seen protecting. And at the center of it, standing exactly where she always stood, calm as a locked gate, Wren Calder saying my name once, quietly, the way she'd say it to call me in for supper. Pebble, here. I went to her. The whole pack did. We put our bodies between the crowd and what was left of the scavengers, and when it was over, the yard was silent, except for the horn still looping its last summons into the dead sky, because nobody had thought to shut it off. Reeve found his voice before anyone else did. He walked down off the platform with the manifest board still in his hand, looking at 19 Dunweir standing shoulder to shoulder around his colonists like we'd always belonged there, and he opened his mouth to say something about protocol, about the cull order, about vermin, and then he looked at the torn ground where the scavengers had been stopped 20 meters short of the nearest child, and he closed it again. He looked like a man doing arithmetic he didn't want to finish. How many, he finally said, are on the manifest? None, Wren told him. There wasn't room. He was quiet a long moment. Then he took a stylus from his coat, crossed out a line on his own board in front of the entire queued colony, and wrote something new. He didn't announce it. He didn't need to. Half the yard had already crowded close enough to read it over his shoulder, and word travels faster than any horn. Where the manifest had once read Dunweir Cull on sight, it now read something shorter, something that made the loaders at Gate 9 laugh out loud for the first time in a decade of dying light. 19 units, unlisted kin, manifest full. We lifted with the last ships that night. I rode in the cargo hold beside Wren's cot, too big for it, same as always. My chin on her shoulder the way it had been since I was small enough to fit in a boot. Somewhere below us, Kessam's Landing went dark for good. I didn't look back at it. I'd already learned, a long time ago, under a fuel crate with a torn ear, that home isn't a world. It's whoever crouches down first and tells you nobody's coming for you today, and means it long enough that, one day, you're the one standing between them and everything else.